Ja, god dag, kjære seere. Vi ønsker dere velkommen tilbake til oss her i Frikanalen, til det vi kaller Trond Alis kvarter. Vi prøver å være aktuelle, ha fokus på aktuelle spørsmål og på aktuelle områder i verden. Midtøsten er et aktuelt område i verden. Palestina, et viktig område i verden. Da må vi selvfølgelig lytte til anti-sionistiske jøder. Jøder som har et brennende engasjement for Palestina, for fred i Palestina, og som innser at med fred i Palestina er det ikke mulig å bibeholde sionistisk ideologi. Og hva med staten Israel selv? Hva slags karakter har den? Så vi ønsker velkommen til studio her i dag. Anti-sionistiske jøder. Vi ønsker velkommen Rabbi Weiss. Så vi sier til deg, Weiss, we are very happy indeed to have you with us. And we are eager to hear your comments, your point of views. But maybe first of all, may we ask you, Rabbi Weiss, who are you actually, please? And maybe also ask, you are an international representative of the movement, the organization, Naturei Karta. Maybe ask, what kind of organization, what kind of movement is Naturei Karta? So please, if you can explain to our Norwegian public here, if you can give some answers. Who are you, Rabbi? And what is the organization you are representing? Thank you.
Thank you. First, I pray to the Almighty. He should bestow upon me His wisdom, His truth, that I may be worthy of conveying His information, His knowledge that He would like the world truly to know, and so we will be sanctifying His name and inshallah, hopefully bring peace to the world. My name is Rabbi Dovid Weiss of Naturei Karta International, as you said. Again, it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to be on your program, especially with you hosting Dr. Ali, who's known internationally for so many decades, really so long of you've done for human rights, which we consider godliness. Compassion. God is compassionate. God says, just as He is compassionate, Mahu rachem afata terachem. Just as God is compassionate, you should be compassionate. So how critical this is. I apologize that I cannot speak in Norwegian. I wasn't gifted with yet from the Almighty, but I will in English with God's help, and you with God's help will translate this. I am a spokesperson for Naturei Karta. Naturei Karta is Aramaic. It is part of the Talmud, which is part of the oral law of the Torah, the covenant that God gave with the Jewish people on Mount Sinai some 3,000 years ago. God gave the Torah through Rabbeinu Moses, our rabbi, to the Jewish people. We made a covenant with God. And then later it was explained and written in Aramaic in the Talmud Bavli. Basically, in that, so part of that language, which is part and parcel, which is integral part of the Torah, the word Naturei Karta is used. Naturei Karta means Naturei protectors Karta of the city. So in regard to us, the name was chosen because Jewish people have been residing in Al-Quds, in Jerusalem, amongst the neighbors for hundreds of years, the last few hundreds of years, under the Ottoman Empire, under Muslim leadership, and they have been residing peacefully as in all the other Arab and Muslim countries. They've been flourishing, and they were embraced and given a home in all the Arab and Muslim countries, and we were able to uphold our covenant with God, to practice, to be subservient to God, which is what Judaism, our religion, is, to be subservient to God. Then a movement started, unfortunately, tragically, a movement, nationalistic, materialistic movement called Zionism, which was started basically by non-religious Jews. Jews had left the fold of the covenant. They rebelled against this concept of being subservient to God. But at the same time, it seems it's a wonder, it's really bewildering. If they left the folds of Torah, they should have just assimilated and disappeared like many of their forefathers, their parents did, and they became like Reformed Jews. But these Jews decided that they will use the name Judaism, the religion Judaism and the name Judaism to buttress their political movement, which is called Zionism, which is a nationalism, to create a nationalistic movement and to make a sanctuary, something, a place for their home for this nationalistic movement, a country. And they decided at the end of many different plans to pick Palestine to be their homeland for this nationalistic movement. And to make a nationalistic movement, as anybody is well aware, you need massive amounts of backing, money, and support, moral support. And they decided that the most advisable, the most efficient way to do this is to create this state in Palestine, and they will turn to the Jews around the world, and they will say, this is our Jewish homeland, this is our Judaism, this belongs to us, as it was given to us by God this thousands of years ago, and therefore we have a right to it, it's legitimate, and you should be supporting it. And there are many Christian people who also follow the Old Testament to a certain degree, who believe in the Old Testament at least, and they say that they believe you should support Jews and in their home, to have a homeland, so they'll be able to glean support from the world inhabitants, the Christian inhabitants. So therefore they used the concept of Judaism, although it's a totally materialistic concept, Zionism, an ideology, and it's void in its essence of godliness. It's distinctly distinguished from religion, because they proudly announce you don't have to be religious, you can be what you want, you can be a rebel against God, and yet at the same time they're embracing the name Judaism, claiming the right to the land of Palestine because of the Judaism concept. So here they took this land, they decided to make this their homeland, calling it a Jewish state, using Jewish symbols, the Star of David, the name Israel, which is Jacob in the Torah, and really a transformation of Judaism, the religion, subservience to God, the covenant that we made 3,000 years ago, transforming this into a base nationalism, like an empty shell, a facade, and using this concept to both glean support, like I say, for the Christian world, from the Jewish world, throughout the Jewish world, to people who are counting on their lack of knowledge of the religion, ones who are not religious, and things, or people who are basic, simple people who don't know the religion, and therefore they'll be able to ask that they should be backed in their creating the state. Now, when they came to Palestine, it happens to be that the Palestinian Jewish community as a whole were very God-fearing religious Jews who, as I mentioned just right at the beginning, that they lived under the Arab and Muslim communities, under the rules of the Ottoman Empire, in peace and tranquility, in harmony with their neighbors. And their simple goal was not nationalism, not to create a Jewish state, but simply to live and practice, to be subservient to God. And they flourished. They put out many great rabbis came from throughout the Ottoman Empire and from all the Arab and Muslim lands. And when this movement, this Zionist movement that started in Vienna, it started in Austria, decided to encroach on Jerusalem and come in to create their movement, the Jewish inhabitants were very threatened by this, and they stood up and protested and opposed this incoming movement of Zionism. And then was created a movement that has given different names, but eventually became Naturei Karta as one of the movements that stood up in opposition to Zionism. Naturei, protectors, Karta of the city. It was created to protect against this influx, this movement of Zionists, this nationalist movement that started developing, that came in from Europe. And in order to be able to protect themselves against these non-practicing as a whole, but these Jews who came from Europe, they decided to create this movement. And now it was attached with the Eida Charedis Aguda. That means different. The Eida Charedis exists till today. They're still fighting Zion. Eida Charedis means the God-fearing community that is encompassing the many different groups in Al-Quds, in Palestine. Simply this exact translation that the Eida, the Charedis, the God-fearing communities, that they're still living there, practicing Judaism, refusing to accept this Zionist control over the land. This Eida Charedis has their own chief rabbi, and they had, from day one, they had the chief rabbi, and that's so there's two chief rabbis in the world. Actually, the world knows even the other chief rabbi of the Zionist movement, the rabbinate of the Zionists. The world knows. When you ask them what's the rabbinate, they'll refer to the Zionist rabbinate and the Zionist chief rabbi. We look at that as a farce. It's simple, people masquerading in Judaism, using it to legitimize a total criminal entity called the Zionist State of Israel. The true Jewish community, the Eida Charedis, has a rabbinate and a chief rabbi. It goes with succession. Actually, in 2013, when Misparam was passed away, the last chief rabbi that wasn't, we took up another chief rabbi. You could see hundreds of thousands of Jews gathering to welcome the new chief rabbi, because we look for the most competent rabbi that we can find who's willing to take on this yoke. And we took up, there's a chief rabbi today leading the Jewish community, hundreds of thousands. And I'm clear that in Norway they didn't show these pictures of people gathering in the streets of Jerusalem welcoming a chief rabbi who's openly and distinctly opposed to the existence of the state of Israel. But this is the way it is. There's a community that's thriving in Palestine that refuses to accept this occupation, this so-called Jewish state. So again, we have the concept of Judaism, which is subservience to God. That's what we are. It's a religion. We went through these 2,000 years of exile that Jews lived originally in the Holy Land. Then they were driven out with the destruction of the temple around 2,000 years ago. We went through many trials and tribulations. We went through the last one that people are still alive remember, Hitler, where they his name should be eradicated, that the destruction of Jewish people. Why? Because of Jews as a religion, that we are subservient to God. My grandparents were killed also in Auschwitz, and we are the remnants of these Jews. We are Jews not because we have a nationalism. We are Jews to be subservient to God. We gave our lives for this. This is what we're all about, simply to be subservient to God. One of the concepts of being subservient to God is that we were, since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago, we were put on the oath by the Almighty that the Jews were sent into exile, we believe, with the destruction of the temple, King Solomon's temple and the second one afterwards. We were sent into exile by God, not because we were physically weak or we were lacking in an army. It wasn't that. It's simply because we say in our prayers, Mipnei chatoeinu galinu me'artzenu. That's the Lashon Kodesh, the Old Hebrew. That means because of our sins, the Almighty sent us into exile, and we were put on the oath by God that we were put on actually 3 oaths. One, we should not attempt to return en masse, in large numbers, to the Holy Land, because it's a godly decreed exile. Because of our sins, we are not worthy of being in the Holy Land as a nation. we believe that God is the ruler over the whole universe, and yet the Holy Land has a certain spiritual elevation, a certain spiritual height, that we have to be on a very high level of holiness to be able to be there as a nation. And God warned us through the words of Jeremiah, Ezekiel, all the different prophets, that we were not on that high level required for us to be there as a nation. And we were sent into exile and warned that we should not attempt to return en masse as a nation. As individuals, we were allowed by the Almighty to live in the Holy Land with the permission of the different rulers of the Ottoman Empire, so forth, that we can stay there. And we lived in the Holy Land throughout these hundreds and hundreds of years of Ottoman Empire with their permission, and we flourished there as individuals, but not as a nation. As a nation, we're distinctly forbidden to come back in mass in large numbers. Secondly, there's three oaths. One, not to return en masse. Secondly, not to rebel against any nation in the world. Wherever country we are residing throughout the world, we should pray for the well-being, be loyal citizens. Thirdly, we should not make any attempt to end exile. And these are three very strong oaths that the Jews was put under 2,000 years ago, and we, as Jews, have always respected, because it's part of our religious, and obeyed these commandments, these oaths of God to us. So we never attempt, even though we've gone through so many different trials and tribulations, the Crusades, Inquisition, and on and on and on, we never attempted to recreate our Jewish sovereignty. And certainly not a Jewish sovereignty in the Holy Land. In other words, it's forbidden for us to create the Jewish sovereignty in any part of the world. So if the Zionists would have followed some original plans to make a country in Uganda, or to make it in Patagonia, it would also have been forbidden for us. But certainly not to return to Palestine, which this encompasses a breach of all three oaths: to return en masse, to say we're going to create a Jewish sovereignty, and to rebel against the nations of the world, the people, the indigenous populace there. So this whole creation of making a Jewish state is totally unacceptable. It is forbidden for us, and therefore the Jewish community in Palestine just simply said, no, there's no way we will accept this. This is a simple rebellion against God. It has nothing to do with us. Now, first of all, but the whole thing is a farce, because they didn't want to accept Judaism and make a Jewish state there. They're using the name Judaism for their convenience of creating their nationalist movement, because they weren't accepting Judaism. It's simply really a charade. So, but this is when they came up. I have just we have many, really. If you go to our site at nkusa.org, you can see the many different writings. We put out a book called "The Rabbis Speak Out," from Naturei Karta, 130-year record of religious Jewish opposition to Zionism, where you have compiled just short statements of the leading rabbis around the world for 130 years. Everyone who's around the world stood and said this movement of Zionism, even before it was 130 years, because the state of Israel was only 70 odd years, but the concept of Zionism started in Europe, and all the rabbis in Europe, around the world especially, also stood up and said, these are rebels, has nothing to do with our religion, we refuse to support it, we stand in opposition. So that was just one book we put up. But when they came up to Palestine, when it came to fruition, when they decided to settle and make their state in the Holy Land, the chief rabbi, as just an example of from the Eid HaChareidis, the one who was the part of this organization that I mentioned, the leader of the Jewish community there, his name was Rabbi Yosef Tzvi Dushinsky. We took this from the United Nations records. This is a picture of him. It's not such a clear picture. Again, you can go to our site and download all of this. It's all for free. But this is a statement that he said. It's from the United Nations documents. And there was a delegation of the United Nations in 1947 that they were trying to, feel out the communities, see what would be to make a so-called Jewish state there to support Zionism, which eventually, as we well know, the United Nations ratified this Zionist state of Israel. But the Rabbi Dushinsky pleaded with the United Nations in July 16th, 1947. And I'm quoting just one line of what he said there to this delegation of the United Nations. He said, "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. So there you have it in a nutshell, that what the concept of making a so-called Jewish state is not only an oppression of the Palestinian people, a grand theft of from the Palestinian people of their home, their land, their rule, their dignity, everything, their lives. It is a direct rebellion against God, all-encompassing in every facet you look at, because even if it would have been an uninhabited land, a simple desert, we would be still standing here and fighting them with our lives, because this is totally a rebellion against God. We were put on the oath by God not to return en masse, not to rebel against nations, not to try to end the exile. It's a godly decreed exile. And then, like I've said, they're also trying to undermine the religious part of Judaism, uproot from the Jewish youth what it means to be a Jew, to serve God. So in 4 ways that I've mentioned, and the fifth, of course, with the elephant in the room, of course, is the simple fact that they didn't make this in a desolate land, in an uninhabited land. They decided to create their homeland in the land that was inhabited by the majority Muslim people, and then a Christian community, and the Jewish community, which all three pleaded with the United Nations, pleaded with the world, and said, we don't want this cancer, this movement to be here. Unfortunately, the will of God, the works of the Satan, though God gives the Satan the opportunities to test people, it was ratified. The state of Israel was ratified, and they gained control. But the Jewish people, from day one till today, stand without a gap in total opposition. We demonstrate constantly. We've been we have, like I say, many pictures. Let's just show when the Palestinian Authority was started by President Arafat. One of our people became the spokesperson. His name was Rabbi Hirsch of blessed memory. He's happened to be blind in one eye. They poured acid in his face, the Zionists. We've been demonstrating at the cost of our lives. Jews, we're not violent. We never carry arms. It's against our Jewish policy. But we've stood and demonstrated from day one. They require every person from the age of 17, boy or girl, to stand up and serve in their army. Our boys and girls refuse to serve in their army. They get arrested. This, you see, they try to psychologically destroy them. They dress them in prison uniforms, but in army uniforms. Here you see a girl with a tehillim, a prayer book, the Psalms, and she's crying. She's behind bars because she refuses to serve in their military. We can show you, just picture after picture of Jews, thousands and thousands of people demonstrating in the streets of Jerusalem and being ruthlessly beaten, attacked, and assassinated our rabbis from day one. So this is what Naturei Karta is. We are an organization that Jews gathering and standing up and opposing the occupation of Palestine. We cry and suffer and hurt and sympathize with the suffering of the Palestinian people, that they are so being oppressed by people that are flaunting and masquerading in our identity and claiming the right to oppress them under the name of our religion, when we have been giving our lives for 2,000 years for our religion, and here people are using our religion to commit a crime against God, to do atrocities against the will of the Almighty in the name of religion. How ironic, how tragic, what a nakba that is. That is what Naturei Karta is. We will continue with God's help until God, with His compassion, will free the world of this this cancerous movement, this rebellion against God. Like we've been standing, and we continually stand together with the Palestinian people around the world. This year, I would be in Norway with you standing there, but unfortunately, because of God's decree that we have this the corona, this COVID now, so we cannot be outside demonstrating. Although I must tell you, we do with social distancing, with masks, we do go out to Washington and Manhattan when it's necessary, when we can, and we do demonstrate with the Palestinian people, with the Arab and Muslim people. But as a general rule, we have to do this through Skype, through Zoom, and different other approaches. So we're here to let the world know that we didn't fall asleep. We are still and will be, with God's help, standing till God, with His compassion, will free the world of this occupation, give back the Palestinian people their lives, their dignity, their homes, and this is what we are here to talk. That's what Naturei Karta is here, and with God's help, we will continue with more explanation, more in the future.
Thank you very much indeed, Rabbi Weiss. I think it's very, very important speech you have made for us. You have given us clarifications on words, on realities, history, and we have learned a lot of Naturei Karta, your anti-sionist movement. I noted on your dress that you had a mark with your letters on the Palestinian flag. So I think it would be very important indeed for the future that you could explain more about your relationship between the anti-Zionist Jews, the Naturei Karta on one hand, and on the other hand, the Palestinians, the flag of whom you are carrying yourself, Rabbi Weiss. But I'm sorry to say, I think our time is out now for today. We will be looking forward for next explanations and talk from you. So we thank you for this time. Looking forward to see you again very soon. Thank you, Rabbi Weiss.
Thank you so very much. God bless to all your listeners and all the people of Palestine amongst the world. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.